Welcome to the Project Management Prepcast, your guide to PMP exam success. Here's your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner.
Hello and welcome to the Project Management Prepcast, where preparing for the PMP exam means that you can actually listen to the PMBOK guide. I'm your instructor, Cornelius Fichtner. The PMP exam, it's an experience-based exam. It does contain some knowledge-based questions, but for most, you need to apply your practical knowledge combined with the PMBOK guide framework in order to find the best answer to a particular situation. In this lesson, we look at how to apply the concept of the project communications plan from the PMBOK guide into the real world. Too often in our rush to produce deliverables, the communications plan is overlooked. This happens everywhere, even in companies that have formal project management methodologies. On the outset of your projects, you might, have the best intentions and take the time to create a communications plan. But as the project progresses and day-to-day issues come your way, the communications plan is drifting ever more into the background. Your communications aren't managed, new stakeholders aren't added to the list of recipients, and all that remains is kind of that nagging feeling that you're forgetting something. And that's the story when you use the communications plan as a tactical tool. But what if you approached it strategically? What if you took the time and really managed your communications against the plan? Might there even be benefits? Margaret Maloney answers this question with a resounding yes, which is why she is our guest for this lesson. The discussion will present to you a good overview of how the communications plan, the communications management plan, if you prefer, really helps you on a project. And this concept translates over to all the other management plans that the PMBOK guide knows. Let's hear a little bit about our guest and then go straight into the interview. Margaret Maloney started her career as a computer programmer. During her years in information technology, she has had the opportunity to perform different roles and work within multiple industries. She has been successful as a programmer, analyst, a business analyst, as a project manager, program manager, and senior line manager. She holds a Bachelor of Science in Business Administration and a master's degree, an MBA, from California State University, Long Beach. She is also a certified PMP. A constant throughout her career have been her strong communication skills and a passion to see other people at their best in the workplace and beyond. Her work as a business coach truly is her joy in the job. Margaret helps information technology project managers learn to say, I get to go to work today, and not, I have to go to work today. She helps them find the joy in the job. Hello, Margaret, and welcome to the program.
Hi, Cornelius. Thank you. Great to be here.
A little while back, you wrote to me saying that too often in our rush to produce deliverables, the communications plan is overlooked. Why do you think that we overlook it?
I think that sometimes in our rush to get the project running and up and off the ground, that we don't think about the communication plan as a real tool to assist us. And I think that if we live in a world where we maybe have a methodology and a project audit, or we need in a project plan document to just say something about how we're communicating, that we fill in the blanks so that we think we can hurry up and move on, and then we don't look back.
So what do you think most project managers look at the project management plan? What do they think it is?
I think that because so many of us are pushed by our sponsors and stakeholders and customers to just finish the paperwork and get going, that sometimes we forget that the paperwork is actually lending some strategy and some planning to our effort, and we should really stop and look at it and pay attention because it's something we can lean on later. What
can we do then to change our attitude and move more into that direction?
I'd like to see us use the communication plan as a tool, much like I believe many of us now get it, that we need a well-defined schedule that's been created with the deliverables and the tasks and the actions that need to occur, that we need the proper dependencies and we need to understand the critical path. I'd like to see us include communications in that critical path. I'd like to see us have just as good a plan for communications as we do for A happens, then B happens, then C, I hand you a document to sign off.
Okay. We put today's interview under the heading of the communications plan as a strategic tool. Now, you've begun to outline where we have to start changing our attitudes in order to get there. What other different approaches do you recommend?
Think about the communication plan as a tool to build relationships. And if you think about the fact that when we manage a project, it's not just about things, and it's not just about producing products, it's about the people along the way, then I think it becomes easier to see how that communications plan is a relationship builder. Again, when we take the time, instead of sitting out and rushing through this template, if when I sit down and I say, okay, and every 2 weeks I need to have the infamous bi-weekly sponsor meeting, what if I used it to sit down and think about, okay, yeah, that's all true, but who is my sponsor? What do they really want to know? What value am I really bringing them? And when I sit them down in the room, how can I effectively use their time?
What are the benefits for me as a project manager if I do it that way?
I think there are many benefits. Number one, if you plan it, if you treat your communications plan and the items associated with it as living, breathing project tasks, then I hope you won't find yourself at the end of a Friday afternoon saying, oh, it's Friday at 5, and I need to be home to have dinner with my wife at 6 because I promised her it was date night, and I haven't released the status report to my sponsors yet. If we were treating this plan like a living, breathing part of our lives, maybe I would have even done something like put an appointment on my calendar for Friday at 4 to sit down and think about what I wanted to tell everyone about what happened this past week on our project.
It's very interesting that you mentioned that as a benefit, because I actually have exactly such a reminder in my calendar. All right, that was one benefit. You mentioned that there were many.
So if I do that and I'm using the time well and I'm not just dashing off a status report, doing a send all, please find status attached, happy weekend, love Margaret, what if I am strategically targeting my message and thinking about what do I really want people to know? I'm not doing a send all. I may actually tailor it. So there might be, to an executive sponsor, same status report attached, but a little bit of a different message. To my team, another message, hopefully one of appreciation and thanks for your work this week. And to let's say I work for a director of project management, something in between. This is what was good. These are our issues. This is what we learned this week, and anything that director of project management might need to know as they're walking around. So now you have built relationships with 3 different groups of people. Your team members, your executive sponsors, your boss. So what did that just do for you as a project manager? Well, you now become the project manager who appears to have everything together. You have everything on the ball. It doesn't look like you just hit send all and ran out of the office for date night.
Right.
You have started to
time, however.
Yes, it does cost time. And we need to plan for that time, and it's very hard.
It also requires a change in attitude of the project manager.
It does.
Like you said, you have to change your attitude more towards using the communications plan and all your communications in it as a strategic tool, as a way to market your project to your communications partners, right?
And that's another benefit, thank you, because now you have prompted me to talk about another benefit, which is our communications are informational and promotional. And I'm not suggesting that as leaders we use them to only promote ourselves. That's a personal belief thing. I find that to be too self-serving. But as the team goes, so do we, if we are true leaders and inclusive leaders, right? So if we are promoting the team, who are we? We're that person who is with them. And the team sees that we're that person they want to work for. Sponsors see that we have it all together. We're that person they want to manage their project. And so it goes. I think what happens is at the beginning, again, we do this thing because it's required and we want it out of the way so we can do the real work, the alleged real work.
Yeah.
And then we just communicate on the fly. We think, okay, well, I know every 2 weeks I have to have a meeting, and I know I have to send a status every Friday, and I know I should have the change board. But do we really prepare ahead of time, or do we run into those meetings last minute? And then we've lost an opportunity to promote ourselves, to promote our team, to talk about the benefit and value of our project.
Yes, and we all know project works much smoother, the schedule works much smoother if you prepare in advance. The budget works much smoother if you prepare in advance. Risk goes much easier if you prepare in advance. So why not do it on the communications plan as well? Yes, I can see the argument and pieces starting to fit together. Now let's jump into action here. We are starting out a new project. We have to create the communications plan right now. So what are your recommended steps to do it?
Okay. Well, I'm going to kind of combine some tactical and strategic information together here as I think through this. Mm-hmm. So first of all, I think that the communications plan should have some brief scope information and some of the whys and wherefores of the project so that when someone picks up the document, they don't have to be reminded about what project is this again. Because even though my project is the most important project on the planet, right? The people that I'm working with have 10 others.
Very likely.
So
yes.
Shame on me to expect them to remember everything about the details of Margaret's fabulous project, right? So we should have some background information. Then we should know who. Who is the audience? And we should identify them and we should know them. We should take the opportunity to go and speak to them in person if we're not living in a virtual world. If we're living in a virtual world, we should take the opportunity to call them. We shouldn't always rely on emails. We should remember that this is a dynamic document, not a static document. People change. Participants change. And nothing will make us look bad faster than to look disorganized. And a great way to look disorganized is to forget that one of your customers changed jobs and to continue to keep them on distribution for something they no longer care about, or conversely, to forget to include their replacement who now thinks you're purposefully snubbing them. So it's always about who.
How often do you recommend that we review our communications plan? Is it an ad hoc thing? You just know, this person's changed, so I must update it, or do you have a recommendation?
That's a great question. I think it depends on what channels you have in place. Mm-hmm. If you don't hear from people for a while, I say reach out. Just call and say, I'm still sending you things. Is that okay? I'm okay that you don't respond. I just want to make sure that you're okay. Because you're going to have people who will never, ever respond to you. But if you drop them from the list, you are in big trouble and you won't even know it. Mm-hmm. So it's dynamic as in when announcements come out. Read the org charts that get published. Sometimes we forget to announce every change. If you have a company intranet, take a look. So I would say at a minimum, set aside some time once a week to go through your list of recipients, so to speak, or who you're including, participants, and make sure it's current. Mm-hmm. If you don't know, find out. Then let's look at the what. So what are the messages? What messages are critical and which ones are not? Now, it might sound funny if it's not critical. Why would I include it at all? But the fact is, if I'm going through a particularly quiet time in the project, there can be long periods of time when there's not a lot to say. You still want people to know we're alive, we're here, we're still working for you. This is, your promotional message. The project team is marching on, and in 3 months we're coming to you with something. And by the way, this is what happened this week. And you want to keep people interested in you. So that's your marketing, that's your PR. You also want to remember to tailor your messages to your recipients. And although I think we spoke about this a few minutes ago, I believe it bears repeating. The executive committee doesn't care about the detail that your boss might need.
Yes.
Or, by the way, if you work for someone who is not detail-oriented, then do not sit them down and take them through the step-by-step, play-by-play of your day, because they're going to want to kill you. And
that's knowing the communication needs of your audience.
Exactly. And what does your team need to know? And what do they need to be CC'd on, and what should they not be CC'd on? So that's some of the what. And the why. What is the purpose of the message? Am I really just sending status? Or am I also announcing that we've just hit a major milestone? Sure, I could assume you read the status report and that you get that. Or I could use this as an opportunity to celebrate it and say, hey, here's this week's status, and by the way, guess what we did?
Oh, absolutely. You have to celebrate your successes in the status report.
But again, if we live in that world where we communicate on the fly, sometimes we're just so darn happy to get the communication out that we don't think about what we could really have done with it. True? For some people.
Absolutely.
Now, we also want to think about where, and not as in where, as in I'm going to go home tonight and catch up on my emails and send it from there because I'm behind. Where, as in, where are the people who are receiving this message, and does it matter? Now, you think about this. If I'm working with somebody who's offshore in India, we're on different days. So I need to make sure that I'm communicating with them in a timely manner, and that what I'm saying on this day or on this time, that I'm correctly translating it or giving them the opportunity to correctly translate it. If I'm saying where in terms of a meeting, I want to be clear that everyone knows where to show up, which would then also be followed by when. And when can also be what dates or events are going to trigger the next action, when do I expect to hear from you, that type of thing. And then also think about how. Because although I can tell from the way I'm speaking right now, I'm largely sitting here thinking about emails. It's not just emails. For example, this is not an email, this is a podcast. Is a podcast a tool you want to use if you're working with a virtual group? Can you create a podcast and send it to your team so that it's like they're hearing your presentation live?
Yes, I've actually read a article on blogging in project management and how effective blogs can be as a communications tool. So that could be something that you take into consideration as well on the communications plan. Think about different mediums.
That's right. And if you had a really great budget, can you make movies? Can you film things and put together little fun clips and send them out? And can they be, like project promotional gifts that go out? So there's a lot more to it than just a memo or an email or a phone call.
That, of course, brings us automatically to the next question. Can this be achieved on any kind of project, in any kind of culture in an organization? What's required for all of this?
See, I believe that it can. I believe that it's all about the company and the culture and learning to navigate. So it's the how. So if you don't have a big budget, maybe you are all about emails. That's okay. But what can you do to ensure that they are timely and effective, that people read them and that they're useful? I mean, I don't want to just sit there at my desk and send out 5 emails in a row when I could have sent one. I want to be able to understand my environment and how I should communicate. So, can this be done anywhere? Yes, it's all about tailoring your message, tailoring your how, and understanding where you are.
You mentioned the budget. I think that many of our listeners now go and they put their head in their hands and they go, I could never do this. I don't have the time or the budget to invest into this kind of a detailed communications plan on my 1-year project. It's only a little project. But I personally think that you're pointing the right way. You're showing us focus on your communication, because the more you think about your communication, the better informed your stakeholders will be, the fewer problems you will run into in the long run. Do I see this right?
Absolutely. And see, what I'm trying to talk about here is quality, not necessarily quantity or even expensive. So in a really fun world, maybe we have this huge budget, and under communications, we do buy gifts and we send them out and we mail things to people and we make movies and we have a professional firm come in and brand us and all those things. Or we have no budget to be separated out to be called communications. And you know what? That's okay. Because first of all, just because I'm the project manager and I'm responsible for making it happen doesn't mean I physically have to do it all. So it's the same like the rest of the project where I want to have the role and responsibility matrix. And if the written word is not my skill, I may have someone on the team who's really great at it. I may have, for example, a business analyst who, aside from being a really sharp business analyst, is very good and quick with the written word. Why wouldn't I ask them to help me? And if I was a true team, why wouldn't I? And if I were comfortable in my leadership, why wouldn't I admit the vulnerability and then use that opportunity to build trust? I could also brand my own project by asking the team to come up with a theme and have a contest. So for a $10 Starbucks card, for example, because there's probably so many people still out there addicted to Starbucks. Come on, you all know who you are. For a $10 Starbucks card, I have a reward because for so many of us, the reward isn't really the $10 card. It's the recognition that I came up with that creative theme. And even if I don't have the $10, so great, then it's an announcement. Wow, Cornelius came up with this really cool theme and brand for our project, and here's the logo that we're going to use, and we're going to put these on our documents, and we're going to put these on our emails, and we're going to make posters. And most companies can still afford printer paper and ink, right?
Yes.
I hope. Or we have different problems because you're all secretly looking for another job because you know that doors are about to close. So that's a different issue. So you can brand with posters. You can hold a event where each team member brings in something, and you can hold a potluck. And sure, it's a potluck, but it's also a celebration of your project. Or it's a milestone celebration, and you invite your customers and users to say, come sample our fair and celebrate with us this fact that we have just completed design. So see, all those things were actually very inexpensive.
Mm-hmm. Have you seen a project where your approach was actually used in some way and where it worked?
I had the opportunity to work on this project where I really got to exercise a communication plan in full, and I think that's what helped me become a true believer. And we had a very low budget, but what we had was a very strong communications team, I was very fortunate, I had a very strong supportive project sponsor, very strong supportive CIO, and a user community who loved this software that we were upgrading. And what we were able to do was sit down together as a team with the communications team and the training department and come up with a series of messages. And we were doing these implementations. And they were across multiple weekends over a few months. So we were able to sit down and target a series of messages that would go to these people. Something along the lines of, in 2 weeks, this is coming, so we want you to know that next week we have a presentation and a training class, and we're doing it on 2 different days at 2 different times. And if you can't come in person, here's how to find the materials. If you can't do that, please call one of us. Then a day or 2 before those events, another reminder. Then the morning of the migration, another reminder. And then as soon as that migration completed over the weekend, there was hopefully the successful message. And if not, there was the rollback message and the we're sorry, we weren't able to go forward. Everything should look just like it did when you left Friday. And here's what to expect for how we're going to take care of this moving forward. And it was very fun and easy.
Probably successful and well liked by the recipients as well, because they were constantly kept in the loop, right?
It was very well received. And at the end, we did a survey. And although this particular company had a survey tool of their own, you can go to SurveyMonkey and other ones, and they're free and easy. And our customers had a chance to talk back to us at the end. Mm-hmm. And it was really great experience.
Perfect segue, because my next question would have been that we've already talked a little bit about the where, when, how, and why of the message. But once the message is out of your hands, it's a two-way street. You will probably get feedback from your communications partners. How do you work this feedback into your communications plan?
It's really important to be very receptive and patient with the feedback that you do receive. So while we're putting ourselves out there, right? We're extending ourselves out on a limb, some of us. Some of us do this all naturally anyway, and some of us do not. So we're putting ourselves out there by doing all this communicating. Now, some people are going to love it. Some people not so much. And what I believe we need to do is when we are approached by the person who doesn't love it or doesn't get it, it's not personal. It's not about them. It's not about me. It's about what can we do to be successful together. So even with all those great messages that I just told you about that we sent, there were absolutely people who still said, I don't understand, or you didn't tell me. Now, as a team, and I'll say as the primary respondent, we had a couple of different choices. One, as the primary respondent, I could have just taken the original message and sent it to them and said, oh, here it is, dummy. Or with that attitude, right? I mean, hopefully no one actually says it, but have you ever communicated with someone who made you feel that way? Well, here it is, dummy. I sent it to you yesterday.
We've all had those.
Right. Or I could pick up the phone, if possible, and call them and say, I'm so sorry that this wasn't clear. What can I do to help make it more clear? What can I do? And really, you want to convert that person. So the goal, and see, this goes back to why this is strategic and why this is about building relationships, is I now am campaigning to make a detractor my fan. And I said don't make it personal, so I just used the word me, right? It's not that I want them to be a fan of me, Margaret, the project manager. I want them to become a fan of what we, the team, are doing. I happen to be the face and the voice at that moment. Now, for the people who are saying, yes, good job, way to go, great, but keep including them. Don't back down. Don't become relaxed because your message is well received. And when you don't hear from people, remember to reach out.
Let's take this all back to the original thought, the communications management plan as a strategic tool. Most of what we talked about seemed very tactical, very task-oriented, very result-oriented. How do I take all of these great ideas and frame them in my plan as a strategy?
I believe that if I'm tying together the who, what, when, where, how, why, that is part of the strategy, because if I have gathered that data, I now know how I want to approach them. And I can take that and tie it into my brand. So now let's exercise the thought of brand for a minute. What is the brand? There's the brand of the company you work for. There's the brand that you as a person bring to the table as a professional, which we all have a brand whether we know it or not. And then there's the brand that the team has. They have it as individuals and they have it collectively as the project. If the goal is for the project to come across as, look at how together this team is, look at how clearly they're communicating with us, they're organized, they're bringing value, then everything that we are doing in our communication plan should support that. And everything is things that are written down in the plan and things that are not. So here's the thing that is not. I am walking to the cafeteria and one of my project sponsors flags me down to talk to me. How I behave at that moment is reflective of the brand of the team, the brand of me, and the brand of the company that I work for. So if I say, not now, or gosh, can't I even get a cup of coffee around here without somebody needing to talk to me? Is that the brand that I wanted? If I spent all this time working to put together all these fabulous messages, I can ruin it in 2 seconds with my behavior, my attitude. If I talk to my team in a different manner than I talk to upper management, I'm ruining my brand as a person and I'm impacting their brand because I'm impacting how they're going to want to behave and how they're going to want to work for me.
Okay, the whole thing is starting to gel with me. Okay, I think I see it. Correct me if I'm wrong. So in my communications management plan, I will talk about the how, when, where, why, what, who, and I will make statements that are on a strategic level. I will say how I want to communicate, why I want to communicate, what I want to communicate, what my goal is with these communications. And at the same time, I can go a level deeper and I can also put in tactical approaches. What tools are we going to use? What messages are we going to send out? And the combination of that will bring me more of a rounded approach to communications. Is that summing it up in the way that you wanted?
Yes, I would say that that's what I'm looking for. That's the message I'm trying to carry to people, is that let's take this document, let's take this checklist, and let's talk about what we're going to do and when, and then let's bring it to life. Let's just not make it some drudgery. Let's not make it some, oh, I have to go answer my emails now. Oh, I have to go speak on behalf of the project. Oops, I have to have slides ready for the executive presentation in a half hour. Let's put some thought into it. Let's make it a brand. Let's live that brand. Let's represent ourselves and our team well. And let's use this tool to build relationships so that when the day comes that our project hits a snag, and it may, that's not the first time anyone ever heard of us. See, if the first time anyone ever heard of me is when I have to say, we're sorry, but we're late and over budget, I haven't built the relationships I need to support all of us in that situation.
All of this sounds like it requires an incredible blend of skills, soft skills, hard tools, techniques. Do you feel that project managers are ready for this?
Yes.
Why?
Because I believe that project management is a blend of art and science. So, going back to the example of it's Friday afternoon and I'm sending out my status. My wish for all of us is that our status is based on quantifiable data, and that I am at least reporting my planned dates, my baseline, my actual, my variance, my discussion of my variance. And that I'm doing that for dates, I'm doing that for hours, and I'm doing that for budget, because that's the world that I've come from. And that those should be tied to, again, quantifiable things. So that if you walked up to me and said, Margaret, you say you're $50 under budget, prove it. I can prove it with real facts. And that is the science. Now, the art is the way in which I present that. So if my art is I merely take that and hit send and go home with no descriptors, I think I'm failing at my art. I feel that I have a responsibility to be able to tell you all those things went on. And by the way, did you know that this week our business analyst was sick for 2 days in a row and had 40 hours of work to do, and she came back on Wednesday and she worked overtime because she felt so strongly about supporting this project effort that she didn't miss her due date today. So it's not just, wow, team, you made your date and I expected you to make your date. It's look what we did. And look at the promotion I just was able to give for my team. Mm-hmm. And to me, that's the art and science. One of the aspects of art and science.
All right, so let's wrap it up. And here's my final question for you. Mm-hmm. Do you feel that we need a completely new approach to the communications plan? Or is it more of a change of focus approach in how we deal with it, how we manage it, and how we use it?
I think it's all about how we think. I think it's about changing our thought process. I wouldn't say that we need to run around and go out there to every company and to the PMI and all the training institutions and say, whatever you're teaching people to put in a communications plan, stop. I don't feel we need to do that. I just want to see us stop and think. I want to see us change the way in which we view that communication plan so that we view it as our tool and a supporting tool. That's what I would ask for.
Great. Thank you very much for having been here today and having shown us how to use the communications plan as a strategic tool. This was a fun and entertaining as well as educational interview for myself as well. Thank you.
Thank you. This was really fun for me too. And to all the listeners, I wish you health and happiness and success and clear communications.